There's no shortcuts. There's no way to just cheat and just manufacture the results you want. You need to do it the right way. That's the only way that you're going to get reliable, reproducible, and healthy, safe results. And you're going to get the best results.
Dr. Anthony Chaffee is back, and we're diving deep into the 10 worst carnivore mistakes that you're making when starting a carnivore diet. Now, I've spoken to Dr. Chaffee numerous times, and I will link all the videos up here, but this interview will change the way that you follow the carnivore diet. Now, Dr. Anthony Chaffee will be joining us live on our monthly membership group. You can chat to him directly and ask him all of your burning questions. I will leave the link down below, and you can get a special 20% discount. Dr. Chaffee, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good to see you.
So many people start carnivore and they lose weight without counting calories. They have reversed chronic diseases, but some of them have, or they make common mistakes that wreck their results, including their fat loss results. So what I wanted to do was to talk to you today about the 10 worst mistakes that people make when starting carnivore. So can we start off with the first worst mistake that you think people make?
So I think a very common mistake that people make is they don't eat enough in general. It's very easy to undereat on a carnivore diet. Your hunger signals are very they're just much more mild and subtle than when you're eating carbohydrates. When you eat carbohydrates, it just accents that hunger signal, and your body thinks you really need energy when you don't necessarily. And so you tend to have a stronger signal. So when that goes away, you have a much more subtle signal, and so people can undereat very, very easily. I did for the first few years that I was doing this, and I even noticed this. I was like, I haven't eaten in 3 days, 4 days, and I'm working out like crazy, and like I should really eat. But I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, I'm just not hungry. I'm just not hungry. But anytime I would eat, it tasted amazing, and I enjoyed it. And that's when I came to realize that taste signal is a better marker. And so you have to relearn your hunger signals and going by taste. So if meat, fatty meat, especially, because as any chef will tell you, fat is flavor. If you're eating fatty meat and you're hungry, it will taste good. And so you're getting that positive feedback. But then eventually, once your body has enough of it, it actually will get less and less positive feedback until you get no positive feedback. And then you just feel like, I'm not really interested in eating this, and you just naturally stop. If you keep eating it, you'll actually get negative feedback, and it'll actually start tasting bad, and you won't want to do that. And some people, I have patients that have had portion issues, and they're used to eating a large volume of food, and they say, I can't finish my meals. I get halfway through, and I feel nauseous, and I hate it. It just tastes disgusting, and I have to force feed myself. And of course, I explain to them, well, this is your body telling you that you were actually done halfway through the meal. Your meal was done halfway through your plate, and that you should just, put it in the fridge and then come back to it another time.
Next one. What is your next mistake that people make when starting a carnivore diet?
Yeah, the next one would just be not eating enough fat in particular. That's a very common one. People will, maybe they'll be eating more meat, and they'll be eating a lot more fat than they used to. But of course, we've been told for the last 40 years, 50 years, don't eat any fat. And so most people are eating a lot more fat than they used to eat, but it's not enough fat. And so they're thinking it couldn't possibly be that, because I'm eating so much more fat than I ever ate. So obviously I'm eating enough fat. But in fact, it's a lot more than that. So animals in the wild typically get around 70 to 80% calories from fat. Carnivores, because they eat animals with fat, and they go for the fat first. But also herbivores, because that's actually what they break down fiber into. So they eat fiber, but it's actually their bacteria that digest and absorb the fiber. And as a byproduct, they release fat and protein. So even a gorilla and a cow that just eat plants, grass and leaves, they actually absorb fat and protein. And so we all need fat and protein. They get that, gorillas get around 70% calories from fat. Cows get even closer to 80% calories from fat. And again, so that's a lot more fat than people think, because we've been told to get like less than 20% calories from fat. Well, now you want more than that. And it's different for different people, but it's generally a lot more than people think. And so if people are tired or they're lethargic, especially if they're not having as good of workouts and they don't have the same energy levels that they used to on exertion, that can be a major reason why. And so just to think about that, maybe, am I eating enough fat?
That's why I have butter is gold, because
Yeah.
butter, fatty meat, and all the fat is really important because that's what keeps you satiated.
Yeah, absolutely. And your body chases nutrients more than it chases calories. And fat is not just a calorie source. It is an essential nutrient. There are essential fatty acids that you have to have that you cannot get from anything except animal sources, and they come with a lot of fat soluble vitamins that that you do need that are essential. So, you do need to eat these things. And so when you're getting these nutrients from the fat and from high nutrient dense foods, which meat is, and especially, there's different sort of qualities of meat as well. But when you're getting that high quality nutrition, you will be satiated for longer because your body has those nutrients. And so you stay more satiated, with better energy levels longer.
And what about the converse that some people eat too much fat because they have an appetite for fat?
It's difficult to eat too much fat. From taste, things will just not start not tasting as good. But also you have a sort of an overflow valve for fat anyway, because our body has a limited capacity for absorbing fat. So we make bile from our liver that's stored in our gallbladder, released into our intestine, small intestine, and that is what emulsifies fat and allows us to absorb it. You have a finite amount of bile. It's not made very quickly. It takes 24 hours to make around 800 milliliters of bile, and after that you're out. You run out. And so once you run out, it's very difficult for your body to absorb that. It can do a little bit. It can, especially like medium chain fatty acids can get a bit of those, but it's actually a very, very small percentage of the fat can be absorbed without bile. So the vast majority of that will go out. And so the only way you could really overeat fat is, well, you could overeat fat in the sense you eat more fat than your body can absorb, but you're not going to absorb it really. So it's very hard to overabsorb fat. And you were, some people think that, well, maybe I have to take digestive enzymes and like ox bile or something like that. Then you can overabsorb fat. Absolutely. If you take ox bile, then that forces your body to absorb fat because now you're adding more bile to the mix. But I think that that's probably not a good idea because your body doesn't do anything on accident. I don't think it's making a random amount of bile just for a random amount of fat in return. Your body is very precise in what it's going to expend energy on and resources on. And so I think that it's making a calculated attempt to say, hey, we're going to have this much bile because we want this much fat in return. We want a return on our investment. So I don't think that that's random. So if you're taking in ox bile, then you're going to be forcing your body to absorb more fat than your body maybe would have wanted. Now, if you don't have a gallbladder and you're going to eat a big meal and all that sort of stuff, well, that's a personal choice in a special situation. But most people under most conditions don't need to do that. In order to sort of overeat fat and overabsorb fat, you'd have to take ox bile, or you'd have to eat so much excess fat that even that small percentage of excess fat or that small percentage of fat that was absorbed then becomes too much. And so you have to eat so much fat. So you're going to have most of this stuff is going to be going out, remember. And when you have an abundance of fat in excess that you have to excrete, that comes out as loose stools. You get diarrhea. And so you're going to have like quite dramatic diarrhea and loose stools. And that's not going to be a very fun situation. And so you're going to look at that and be like, okay, I'm not going to just keep doing that. And if you just keep eating fat and keep eating fat, you're going to keep having horrible, horrible experiences. And so you could do that, but it's very, very difficult. And you have to really fight against yourself to do it.
Okay, here's a question for you. So I have so many members on my community group that say, I am doing strict BBE and they have loose stools. They say, Rena, what can I do? So you're saying, don't take a lipase supplement, don't take the ox bile because it can make you over-absorb fat now, and then you're going to eat more. So what can people do when they're first starting? If they're getting loose stools, how can they help with that?
Well, it depends. It depends on what causes it, because a lot of people do a carnivore diet differently. And so most people drink coffee, and most people keep drinking coffee when they go carnivore, and coffee is a laxative. And when you don't have this just ton of fiber blocking the pipes, that laxative effect is much more dramatic and more noticeable. And so maybe you're drinking the same amount of coffee, but now you're getting diarrhea, right? Also, artificial sweeteners, even, like, especially like, sucralose and the different sort of sugar alcohols, those are definitely laxatives, but even stevia, monk fruit sweetener, they could act in that way as well. So those those generally need to be taken out. But some people say, well, they're not carbs, so that's okay on a carnivore diet. It's like, well, it's not meat, and it's not animal, so I still wouldn't eat it, and it can act as a laxative, and so can coffee. So I would eliminate those two first. But if they're only on meat and only on water, right, or BBE strict, not having anything else, the beef, butter, eggs, beef, butter, bacon, and eggs that Dr. Berry does, and they're only doing that, nothing else, then yes, I would say that you can just pull back on the fat. You just don't need to eat as much fat.
Now, many people follow a carnivore diet and they lose weight, but others don't lose weight or they hit a weight loss plateau. That's why I created the ultimate 4-week fat loss course to help you easily lose fat. All the links are in the description and you can get 20% off for a limited time. How about now? Carnivore mistake number 3.
It is probably coffee. Most people drink coffee and they keep doing this, and then they'll run into that sort of issue that we were just talking about with loose stools, or they might not have loose stools, maybe they have normal stools. What that can do, that can mask how much fat you're taking in. And so, if you have dry, hard stools, then that means your body's absorbing all the fat that you're taking in, and none is getting sent out, right? So you do have that cap, you do have that overflow valve, and after that, that's going to go out. It's going to go into your stools, and you're going to excrete it, and that's actually what's going to keep your stools soft. And so, you may go less often, but that's not constipation. Constipation is dry, hard stools on the Bristol stool chart. You can look that up. And so if there's fat in it, it'll dry out. It doesn't matter how long your colon is supposed to dry out. It's supposed to dehydrate this stuff. That's its job. And so, people say, well, you need to eat fiber so you can move this super quick so it doesn't dry out, all that much. You're literally fighting against your nature. So obviously that's incorrect. When you have excess fat, that keeps that in there. It's already dry. Fat repels water. And so it can stay in there for as long as you want. It will never get more dry than that, and it'll stay so. So it's that little excess fat that means, A, you're getting enough fat because you're absorbing as much as your body wants you to absorb. So I would consider that definitionally enough fat, and then a little extra, and then that's your clear objective marker that you're getting enough fat and your body's absorbing everything it wants to, and a little extra, right? So if you're constipated, you're having dry, hard stools, and you're drinking coffee, then you can actually speed things up, and it can move it through, and you think, oh yeah, I'm not having normal stools, and normal consistency stools, and so that's fine. But they have other problems, and they're not doing as well. Skin's not as good, or their hair's a bit dry and brittle. They don't have as much energy when they're working out and things like that. And even though they're drinking coffee, they don't have great energy levels, which can also be damaged by caffeine as well. That's what you have to sort of start to think about. If you're eating enough fat and you're drinking coffee, you probably should have diarrhea, and so that can mask people that are under eating fat.
Coffee is the one thing. Sweetness, yeah, that's fine. Cream, yeah, that's fine. Coffee, it's just really, really addictive.
Yeah, it's a tough one, but one thing I tell people is that, some people like the ritual, they like making it, they like the smell, they like going to coffee shops, and there's that social experience with it, which is fine. I still, hospitals run on coffee, right? Everybody, nurses and doctors and everyone, if you want to be nice to your team, you bring coffee. When you're meeting up on a break, you meet for coffee. It's always coffee. You bring If you want to bring like a treat for the nurses on the ward, it's either chocolates or coffee. And so it's very much a coffee driven industry. I don't drink coffee, but I still go to coffee. I still buy people coffee if they want it, if they choose to do that. They choose to do that to themselves. And I just drink water, so I still have that social aspect. I'm still there and still enjoying it. If that's okay, and you really just want the actual caffeine, you want the kick, then what I suggest is trying my caffeine tablets, caffeine pills, and that at least eliminates out all these other things that are in coffee that aren't necessarily what you want, all the diuretic sort of effects and pro-inflammatory factors that will make you sore. Like I drank 1 cup of black coffee. I was sore for 2 days. I'm like, I don't want to be sore ever. So, coffee's not really for me. And so you can try that with caffeine and at least have that. And then you'll find that actually your energy levels are better overall throughout the day if you don't have any caffeine. And because you might have that big jump in the morning, like, oh, I feel great, this is great. But then you have that lag and drag, and then you kind of feel gross. You kind of feel like you're withdrawing from a drug, and you just feel junky, and you are. That's because that's what it is. It is a drug. And so, you'll find that you have better energy levels overall. You sleep much better, which means you'll have better energy the next day if you avoid these sorts of things.
So I would love to know from everyone watching, have you quit coffee? Are you doing coffee? Does anyone feel better from like not having coffee, or is it something that you just can't give up? So comment down below, because as you know, with Dr. Chaffee, he's just all about not having coffee. I'm not quite there yet, but maybe you can inspire all of us that are coffee drinkers to get there. But Dr. Chaffee, what is carnivore mistake number 4 that we're making?
Well, I think a major one is keeping in some sort of sweetener, like the monk fruit sweetener or the stevia or the sugar alcohols, things like that. Usually the coffee and sweeteners go hand in hand. Usually someone's still drinking coffee and, well, I don't want to put sugar in it, so I'll put this sweetener in it as well. Or maybe, in whole, heavy cream or something like that. They always ask me, it's like, well, I do have heavy cream in my coffee, is that okay? And I was like, well, heavy cream's fine. Coffee's not great, and so, that's my main thing is I think it's as important what not to eat as what to eat. You're eating meat, you're getting fat. Those are very important nutrients. Those are vital. You need those. But there are other things that just cause harm, and those things are plants and fungi. And so, they all have different sorts of defense chemicals and different ways and means of protecting themselves, to varying degrees. But, if you're looking for optimal health and you're looking to feel as good as you possibly can, then you do want to sort of eliminate these things down to just meat and water, maybe salt to taste if that's your predilection. But the main thing is to try to eliminate out all of these other things. And I definitely think artificial sweeteners are in that category. I think that specifically for weight loss and fat loss, because I think fat loss is a better way of saying it, because I lost 23 pounds just ditching vegetables and increasing the amount of feed. I quintupled my calories and lost 23 pounds by ditching spinach, kale, and broccoli. That's all I was eating: spinach, kale, and broccoli, and like lean meat, and I wasn't eating that much. I rapidly or dramatically increased my calories and the amount of meat I was eating, and just stopped the greens. I lost 23 pounds in 10 days. But then I stayed exactly the same. I didn't change my weight. I weighed the same for months after that, but I just started visibly transforming. I started stacking on muscle and shredding fat. And so I was replacing one tissue with another. So I was getting rid of fat, but I was putting on muscle. It just happened to be exactly equivalent as far as weight was concerned, which was interesting. And
very interesting. I'm sure that everyone wants that. Like, that's the ideal, that you just cut out some vegetables. Don't need, who wants vegetables? Who in their right mind is going to say, I want to eat kale, spinach, all the rest of it? It's conditioned to us to think that's green and that's good. But wouldn't we just love to lose like 23 pounds, jack up and have like beautiful muscle? That's what we all want.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's anyone who wants to eat vegetables that doesn't have Stockholm syndrome, is suffering from some sort of like serious brainwashing and conditioning. But yeah, so sweeteners, I think that those are a major one that inhibit fat loss in particular. And you hit your limbic system, you get this sweet taste, and this can signal your body to think that there's sugar coming. And there's conflicting studies on that, but there are studies showing that you can get rebound hypoglycemia and an insulin spike from eating any sort of sweetener that doesn't have sugar in it. So either way, this isn't something that even existed 50,000 years ago or 100,000 years ago or even 100 years ago in a lot of cases. And so you can't really argue that this is something that we need. This is something essential. This is something that belongs in our food, because it didn't exist. When I talk to people and they say, I really like carnivore because I felt so good on it, but it really, didn't work out for me. And I ask them what they mean by that. And they say, well, I felt really good. I had great energy. Mental clarity was wonderful, and I reversed all my autoimmune issues. Those were all improving. My diabetes was getting better, but I just wasn't really losing weight. So I guess it didn't work for me. It really sucks because I felt so much better in so many other ways. My first thought is, well, it actually sounds like it worked really well for you. Actually, a lot of the times I ask them, okay, what exactly are you eating? And quite often they'll think, well, I'm just eating meat and water. I'm doing carnivore. But it's like, okay, are you only eating meat and only drinking water? There's no sweeteners, no coffee, no this, no that, nothing. And quite often they'll say, okay, well, I am having coffee and I'm putting more fruit sweetener in it, and I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And it's just like, okay, so there's other things, and very often the people that specifically have problems with their weight and fat loss are still incorporating artificial sweeteners.
And that's the other thing, because you spoke about this person that had healed so many conditions, but obviously she thought that she's not losing weight, so it's not working. But from a theoretical point of view, your body doesn't want to lose weight if it's inflamed and sick.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people are coming from different places, and you can have a lot of hormonal imbalances, especially with leptin, and that is very difficult. If your leptin is raised, especially dramatically raised, which some people are, who have been doing a lot of shock diets and eating a lot of carbs and sugar and things like that for years and years and years, their leptin is going to go up. They're going to get leptin insensitivity, leptin resistance, and along with insulin resistance and hyperglycemia, this causes disruption in your body and your metabolism. It's a major signaling molecule for your hormones, for your metabolism, for many other things. And so while that's massively elevated, it's going to be very difficult to lose weight. If your leptin is over like a certain amount, it's usually between like 4 and 6. That's where you want it, ideally. If it goes over 100, which is quite common, I see it quite regularly, people will tell you, like doctors who deal with weight loss medicine or bariatric surgeons, they will tell you that if your leptin is over 100, you cannot lose weight on your own. You will not be able to do it. You have to get surgery. You have to get bariatric surgery, or a bypass or a sleeve or something like that. That's not true. I see people routinely go on a carnivore diet and not only lose weight, but drop their leptin. And the weight loss can be slow at first, but again, that's weight loss, not necessarily fat loss and body composition. Their health improves dramatically, and their leptin starts to come down. And once their leptin gets down to a more normal level, that's when you start seeing the dramatic drop in adipose tissue and fat loss.
Okay, that's why we love you, because you make it so easy. Can people test their leptin levels?
Yeah. You can. It's just blood test. Yeah. And so your doctor, your family doctor, general practitioner can test that. They may not know what to do with it. But the optimal levels are sort of, when you look at reference ranges at the lab, those are just basically like the first 2,000 people that come in that year. That's a reference range, And so that's an average of the population in your area. And this is why 2 labs in the same town can have different reference ranges, slightly different. That's because they had slightly different people come in. And so that's not really a reference range of optimal health. That's the reference range of the average in your community. And, the average person used to be healthy. Now the average person is sick and metabolically unhealthy. So 90% of Americans have at least one metabolic illness. 70% of Americans are overweight or obese. The rest of the world is not far behind. In fact, some places are far worse than that. And so it's not good to go by those reference ranges necessarily. Some of those reference ranges are way out of whack, like leptin. Generally, they consider leptin reference range is much higher than it should be. Vitamin B12 is another one. A lot of these reference ranges would be like 160 to 620, and that's normal, right? So you get your B12 back, it's like 200. Well, it's sort of low normal, that's okay. Or 300. Oh, okay, no, that's pretty good. Just like middle of the pack. No, actually, that's a deficiency. Anything below 400, you get neurological damage and you get demyelination of your axons. So B12 is vital for the myelination of your nerve cells, your axons. And if that's sort of like the insulation of wires, and it helps with conductivity and with the signal, and it protects it as well. And so if you don't have that proper myelination, you can slow down your signal, the transduction of your signal, and that can be damaged. You can actually get neurological damage. We see this in neurosurgery. We look at MRIs, typically in vegans and vegetarians who are chronically B12 deficient. Even when they supplement, sometimes they don't supplement enough, but they need to supplement. And if you have to supplement, then by definition, your diet is deficient. So clearly a vegetarian vegan diet is deficient because they are losing out on these nutrients. But their spinal cord actually atrophies. And you see this on MRI. Their spinal cords are more thin than just omnivores in the normal public. There was actually a study in Oxford in 2008 that followed a bunch of people, but they had a vegan cohort, and they followed them after 5 years, and they did MRIs, and they found that their brains actually shrank by over 5% after 5 years. And they thought that this was most likely to do with B12 because they had significantly lower B12. But even in the people that had supplemented B12, they still actually had significant atrophy as well. So it's not just that, but yeah, it definitely makes a difference.
Good. Okay. Next one, carnivore mistake, number 5. What is it?
Yeah, I think another one is some people try to give up. They give up the good for the perfect. I think like if they don't do it perfectly, then they can't do it at all. A lot of people that I've run into, they'll be doing really well, and like a lot of guys I played rugby with, they get on it and they feel like great, and they be eating, just meat for like a week or two. And they're like, I've never felt stronger. I've never felt better, recovered so well. I really felt great. But then I went over to my parents' house and there was a lot of rice and things like that. And they're like, oh, so I had some rice. So I guess I guess it just, didn't work for me. And I'm like, well, no, you're not like kicked out of the club, like I don't hate you. I'm not mad at you. You just start up again. You can just start again, and they're actually quite surprised by that. They're like, oh, really? I can just, yeah, of course you can. I mean, it's not ideal, but just slipping up once and just getting back on board is a lot better than never going back on board and just eating like crap every single day. Having that understanding, you don't need to be perfect. We make mistakes and we slip up, and maybe we just want to experiment. We're just like, well, what does this do to me? Is this Dr. Chaffee guy, full of crap? Like, I don't think coffee is that big of a deal. Maybe I'll, go off for a month and maybe I'll have some coffee, see what happens. Go for it. Do try that. But, then if you see that going, actually that does affect me, that does cause that I don't feel as good as I do otherwise, then you just hop back on. Or, you go out and, alcohol is a big one that people slip up on, and maybe they've been carnivore for several months. But then they're like, man, I really miss drinking. I really miss that social aspect. And they go out drinking. Drinking is well known to lower your inhibitions for eating crap food anyway. You eat a lot more high octane garbage, like, processed carbs and sugar anyway. And so now you're more likely to sort of slip off. And then they did that. So they drink alcohol, they go out and then they eat a whole bunch of crap and go like, oh, well, I guess I just can't do it. Well, you can, just get right back on it and just keep going from there. And I think that as long as people, just understand that it's okay to mess up, and it's okay to even experiment, and it's okay to even go off, and drink or have a meal or something like that. If you want to, it's better to do that once every now and then consciously than just give it up and do that every single day. I think that naturally you will find that you just feel so much better that you don't want to do that. They say like, wow, you've been doing this for so many years. Like you must be so disciplined. How do you say so disciplined and every single day, like you're fighting against it? I'm like, this isn't a war. Like I'm not fighting anything. I'm doing exactly what I want to do because I have zero interest in eating this crap because I know what it makes me feel like. And I've done that experiment. I've had things like, okay, well, what does this do to me? And I'm like, I don't like that. I don't want that. I like feeling my best. I like feeling like a superhero 24/7. I would way rather feel like a superhero 24/7 than eat something nummy sometimes or be drunk sometimes. I would way rather feel amazing all the time than that have that temporary satisfaction. And that's what it is. It's the same sort of relationship that we have with drugs and alcohol or smoking. We know it's bad for us, but we do it because we get that short-term reaction that we like and we enjoy. In this case, flavor, just, oh, it tastes good. And we have the social experience or something like that. But we understand it's bad. And yet we do it anyway because we just want that experience. And so, and that's a choice that people can make. But that is what it is. That's the same relationship that we have with drugs. And just like you would say someone who goes out and parties on the weekends and does drugs, and you're like, what are you doing? You're killing yourself. You're wasting your life. Well, to them, they enjoy that and they want to do that. But you're looking at them going, like, why would you? Well, I mean, I'm like another step back going like, why would you eat a cupcake? Like, was just like, oh, no, it's good. It's not that bad. Well, a guy doing coke is saying it's good and it's not that bad. I mean, I know people that have had troubles with drugs in the past, and they generally say it's not that big a deal. Oh, everyone does it. It's not that big a deal. It's not that bad for you. And I was like, it is actually. And no, they don't.
So next mistake, carnivore mistake number 6.
So I think that another one that people make is that, not again, in keeping the theme of actually not sticking with full-blown carnivore. And then incorporating things like fruit and honey, saying, well, these are sort of natural sugars and natural sweeteners. And that's true, but so is sucrose. Sucrose is a natural sweetener. It comes from sugar cane or sugar beets. And, it's the same sugar. It's the same glucose. It's the same fructose. And it does the same things in your body. People say, well, honey comes from bees, but, and that's an animal, but it's not of the animal. It's not animal tissue. It's just something that a bee has made, and so like your grandmother made vegetable soup, but that's carnivore because an animal made it. Well, no, she just made it. It's not it's not actually animal tissue. So that's the difference. It was funny actually, because it's bee vomit, right? And that's literally what it is. I mean, they're drinking nectar, they're concentrating it, and they're doing different sort of chemical reactions in their body, and then they hork it up and they store it as a long-term food source, and that is literally what it is. And so I was just making that point online one day, and basically saying cud is the equivalent in cows. That's the cows make it, they chew up the grass, they swallow it down, that sort of gets half digested, they puke it up into their mouth, chew it more, swallow it again. And I'm not going to eat cud either. I don't think that's something that's good for us either. That's food for a cow, and honey is food for a bee, and we're a human. And someone got mad. It's like, oh my God, it's not bee vomit. Like, you need education. And I'm like, well, actually, technically, it actually is bee vomit. That's exactly what it is. And either way, it's not animal tissue. And either way, it has a high concentration of sugar and fructose in particular. And fructose has been shown time and time again, in study after study, to be quite harmful, especially, taken long term. Now, if you're starving, probably the best thing for you is to get, that hit of energy, restores your liver glycogen, muscle glycogen super quick. Like fructose is the quickest at replenishing your glycogen, apart from your fat in your body, because your body constantly replenishes your glycogen. But, outside of a starvation survival situation, I don't think that it's optimal. I don't think that it's what you want to do. And Dr. Robert Lustig has shown, actually has performed randomized controlled trials in humans showing the reversible nature of metabolic disease and metabolic syndrome in adolescents by simply removing fructose or adding fructose. And so these studies actually met the Bradford Hill criteria for causation. So he actually proved causation between fructose and metabolic syndrome. So, I think it's a problem. And, maybe it's better. Maybe there are some things in honey that make it better than, table sugar, undoubtedly. And same with fruit. But that doesn't mean that the sugar acts any differently in your body. It just means that there's other things that mitigate it that are also of benefit. But that doesn't make the sugar good for you by any stretch of the imagination. And people say fruit, well, that's a part of the plant that the plant wants you to eat. Well, it wants something to eat it, not necessarily you. And so those fruits are generally biologically adapted to, or sort of co-evolved with animals to eat them and then move their fruit and their seed. A lot of the fruits that we eat now are cultivated. They're not a natural plant. They've been bioengineered from intensive breeding or by genetic modification to be way more sweet or changed in some major fashion. These are not normal plants. These are modified by humans. And even then, the majority of fruits are still toxic to humans because they want something to eat a plant, not necessarily us. So in fact, most fruits and berries will still be very poisonous to you. A good example of that is cassowary, where most of these berries and fruits have actually evolved with birds. And so you see this in the tropics, where the cassowary bird, they eat 150 different kinds of fruit. Every single one will kill you. That's because the plant wants the cassowary bird to eat it. Because if that seed doesn't pass through the gut of a cassowary bird, it won't germinate. And so if anything else eats that fruit, that seed does not turn into a plant. So that is not in that plant's best interest. There's no survival advantage. There's no biological advantage for anything else eating that plant. And that thing is super toxic. And if, to the point that if the cassowary bird leave a territory, all those plants will die out because they have to have the cassowary bird. They will not germinate. They will not turn into a plant unless it goes through the gut of a cassowary bird. And so, yes, the plant wants something to eat the fruit or the berry, but not necessarily you. And either way, it's not a plant, or it is a plant, and it's not meat, and it's not carnivore, and I wouldn't eat it.
Neither would I. Okay, next one. Carnivore mistake number 7.
I would say I wouldn't eat it unless I was, needed to
dying.
survive.
Unless you're
I'll
dying.
eat honey and fruit if I'm dying. Yeah,
Yes.
100%.
Honey and fruit if you're dying.
That's it. It's
Otherwise, don't have it.
Yeah. Another one I think is, that people slip up on it is, they hear that, when I tell them, I was just like, they say, well, what about dairy? And I was like, well, that's a bit of a gray area. And, so if you can have it sometimes as a condiment, some people can't do dairy. Most people, like with autoimmune issues, they really need to avoid dairy. They need to just be meat and water, and usually just red meat and water, and as close to grass-fed and finished red meat and water as possible, especially while they're healing and they're for around this first 6 months, and they can be a bit more tolerant of things. But dairy seems to have a problem with certain people. It's pro-inflammatory. There's the A1 casein protein and A2 casein protein. A1 is more pro-inflammatory, but A2 is actually pro-inflammatory as well. It's just not as bad as A1, but people can still have problems with it. And so, and there are other issues as well. However, one of the things that people find is that they can actually stall their weight loss and their fat loss if they're eating like a lot of dairy. And that's a very common thing that I see, is that when someone's stalling or even gaining weight, they're putting on weight, and it's just like you talk to them and they're actually eating just a ton of dairy because they hear that, well, you can use dairy as a condiment. You can melt cheese on meat. You can have a bit of yogurt or sour cream on meat. And I always say, use as a condiment. Meat is the meal. You can have a bit of this for flavor or texture or whatever, but, really focus on the meat. and they think, and all they hear is, yes, you can have dairy. And they just start eating just buckets of yogurt and, having sour cream and drinking milk. I mean, milk is a bad idea just because it has enough lactose to increase your insulin and kick you out of ketosis and cause other metabolic issues. But a lot of people will just eat a ton of this. I don't know how many people I told in Australia when I moved to Perth and told them exactly that in that way, that to eat dairy sparingly and as a condiment only, and went into detail about it. And I talked to him a few weeks later and like, how's it going? I was like, well, I'm not really losing weight. And I was like, okay, well, what's going on? What are you eating? It's like mostly halloumi. I'm like, what? And they
Oh,
just like go to
halloumi.
Costco, just get a 3 kilo jug of
Oh,
halloumi. And like they're just eating, that's just what they're eating. They're just eating just halloumi cheese just all day, every
that's
day.
why if I'm at a place and that cheese is there, I don't even touch it, not even one bite, because halloumi is like, see, even though it doesn't have the sugar, but it's got this casein protein and there's like casein morphine addiction. So let's just say there's no sugar, but it's got this addictive quality, but it's so salty and fatty. That's another combination that you just can't stop eating.
Yeah. And, Dr. Paul Mason, he points out that there's actually, a very, very low grade, small amount of opiate in milk. And, this is, you're trying to attract the baby cows or baby person or baby whatever, saying, hey, you should have more of this. So they're like, wow, I really want that. I really want that. Now you're not going to get high, right? But there's enough of it that there's just that kind of like, hey, I really like that. You get a bit of a dopamine kick and you're like, I enjoy this. I want more of this. And I certainly noticed that. I really need to limit I just need to cut out milk is the main thing, because I love milk. I used to always drink like a gallon of milk a day growing up. I loved it.
Really? But you were an
Yeah, I
athlete,
loved it.
like,
Yeah, well, even when I was a kid, like a young kid,
mm,
I loved milk. We always had skim milk though, so it wasn't actually really all that nutritious, but I still loved it. I just loved the taste and just like cold and nice, and I just chug it. And now, it just tastes like ice cream to me, because I like my sweet, I'm so sensitive to sweet now. I drink like, that lactose is just like so sweet to me. That's just like, I'm like drinking ice cream. I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. And I really don't want to stop. And it's not good. So, I find that compulsive aspect of it as well. And so I understand it from people, but that is definitely something that will trip people up. And I think people follow, their bodies and hunger chase nutrients more than calories. And so you're drinking milk or you're having, and that's going to screw you up too, because the carbohydrates are going to, boost your hunger signals anyway, and you'll probably overeat. The, cheeses or whatever, I mean, they're going to have things that are good for you, but they don't have everything. It's not complete nutrition like a steak is. And so your body still wants those nutrients. And so what I find is that quite often people will eat the exact same amount of meat every day, regardless of the amount of dairy they eat. That dairy is always an addition, it's always added. So if they're having a piece of halloumi or a pound of halloumi, like it's in addition to the same exact amount of meat that they're eating generally. And so now you're just adding in extra food that your body doesn't necessarily need or want. And that can definitely stall weight loss or even have people gain weight.
some people have to learn the hard way. So what is the next carnivore mistake? Carnivore mistake number 8.
So number 8 was, I think, that something that people may think that they're very, very limited, and they're like, I have no options, I have no choices, and they get pretty sad about it, and they get sort of worn down and beaten down. They think like, oh, I just can't eat anything, I'm limited. You're looking at all the things that you can't eat as opposed to all the things you can eat. There's tons of things you can eat. First of all, there's a lot of different animals in the world, and you can eat most of them. And there's a lot of different cuts from the different animals that we do eat as well. There's different steaks and roasts and giblets and organs and seafood, lamb, beef, chicken, fish. So there's tons and tons and tons of things. There's whole libraries full of cookbooks going over how to cook all these different cuts and all these different meats, and there's like my mom got me one. It was like the Big Book of Meat or something like that, and like the cottage meat. Like there's just tons of these things. There's all these different roasts, all these different ways of cooking things. There's tons of options. There's always different things you can have. But at the end of the day, like I 99% of what I eat is ribeye steaks, or New York steaks.
You
Steaks.
just eat ribeye and New York steak.
Yeah, mostly. Yeah. Well, and what I was saying before with how we recognize flavors. If you're hungry, things taste better. I think it was who was it? I always think it's Ben Franklin, but maybe it wasn't. Who said that the best seasoning is hunger, right? And it just tastes better hungry. And so when you are hungry and your body wants those nutrients that are in steak, and you get complete nutrition from fatty steak, it tastes amazing. And so if you're hungry, it will always taste amazing. So you can't get sick of it, because if you're hungry, it's amazing. And if it's too lean, then you'll get sort of bored of that, and your body's just like, hey, give me something else, because it wants the fat, it wants the nutrients from the fat. But if you're getting fatty meat, that fatty meat will taste good if you're hungry every time. And so that's the thing, you never get sick of it, because it just always tastes good. And so and then you get to the point where you just go, I'm not really enjoying this anymore. If a steak doesn't taste good, you're not hungry, right? But if it does taste good, you are. And so that's the thing, right? Cows don't get sick of grass. Lions don't get sick of gazelle, and dolphins don't get sick of tuna, and et cetera. So, I mean, and the whales don't get sick of krill. Like, oh my God, krill again? Like, no, that's what they want, And so that's the thing. This is what I want as well. That's what you want as well. And because it tastes good, because we get those nutrients, and that's what eating is. It's about nutrient acquisition. It's very dry, it's very boring to put it that way, but that is what it is. We are trying to get nutrients. We're trying to build and maintain animal tissue. We are animals, and so we need those nutrients. And you can get those nutrients and get rewarded for that with this positive feedback of that tastes good, and then it goes away. And because your body's saying, nope, that's enough, stop there. And so that positive feedback goes away.
Next, second last mistake number 9.
I think trying to calorie count or portion control, or trying to figure that out. Just listen to your body. Nature's natural, just happens all on its own, right? And so again, going back to taste, if it tastes good, you're hungry, right? As long as you're just eating meat, you're not on any medications or eating carbs or anything like that, or artificial sweeteners. If you're eating naturally, you can listen to your natural instincts. And this is like every animal in the wild does this. People may, say, oh, but I have a study that says, I don't care. No animal in the wild counts their calories. I've never seen a koala with a calculator trying to punch out, their macros for the day, right? Like they don't have, athletic coaches or trainers saying, oh, you want to have this and you want to do that. They just eat, they just eat the food that they're supposed to eat. And eventually something in them tells them that's enough. And so we should have that as well. If you're eating what you're biologically designed to eat, you should have that off switch. You should have an on and an off switch. And so that satiety signal, that hunger signal, that reward from eating, that positive feedback, those are all these signals. And, why would they exist if they weren't meant for something, right? People say, like, oh, you should always leave the table hungry. You should always be a little hungry. It's like people, have this hunger signal just to tell you to eat and eat and eat so you could save up, for famine. But that doesn't explain why you have a shut off at some point. That's suggesting that you're always going to be voraciously eating. That's not true. I mean, there are diseases and genetic disorders that can actually cause that, and that's a problem. And they hurt themselves with how much they eat, so that's not how it is with us. We do get satisfied. We do get to the point where we go like, that's enough. Even when we're when it's deranged and we're eating carbohydrates, we're eating sugar, or we're on medications that make us more hungry, we still hit a point where our bodies are saying, stop now, right? So that doesn't make sense. That explanation doesn't make sense. And it doesn't fit with the observed phenomena either, which is animals in the wild eat until they choose to stop and they are not fat. And I say, well, that's because they're in the wild and they're running around and all that sort of stuff. That doesn't explain animals in the zoo. I've never seen a fat giraffe or a fat zebra or a fat lion. And they're living sedentary lives. They live in a box, and yet they're hopefully being fed what they eat in the wild. And then some animals, they're not being fed what they eat in the wild. They're being fed something outside of that, or being like, packaged food and kibble and things like that. They will get fat and they will get sick. And I've spoken to zookeepers and they're like, do you ever give them kibble or this, that, and the other? I'm like, are you out of your mind? You give them that stuff, they'll get human diseases, right? And they say that human diseases like diabetes, heart disease, liver disease, cancer, autoimmune diseases, arthritis, things like that. Well, they're not catching it from us. It's the food that's causing that. It's causing that in them. It's also causing that in us. And when you eat what you're supposed to eat, you step right out of that game, and it does not apply to you. And that's what it is. This isn't a diet. This is a lifestyle. This is a choice. You say, I'm going to be healthy. I want to be as healthy as I possibly can be for as long as I can be. And it's a nice feeling. It's actually really good. A diet is something that you do so you can lose weight real quick and then fit into your clothes for a wedding or something like that. But this is just being healthy long term, and just feeling amazing every single day.
All right, last one, carnivore mistake number 10.
So I think this is you sort of touched on it previously, but basically setting unrealistic goals or focusing on the wrong thing, wrong aspect. I think that's something that can trip people up. So we're talking about that, example of, someone who was reversing all these diseases, got rid of, or improving their diabetes, improving their autoimmune issues, but their weight wasn't coming down. And so they felt that was a failure and that this didn't work for them. And they actually stopped. They stopped doing it because their focus was on weight loss. They wanted to lose weight. That was why they were doing this. That's why they wanted to go on a carnivore diet, because they heard that you can lose a lot of weight on it. And you can. You just need to heal your body first, and you need to get rid of your leptin insensitivity and other sorts of issues, and your hormones and body and your metabolism need to get better. That takes a long time, for some people, and so the dramatic fat loss can take longer for some people. But, you need to focus on your health first and foremost, because this is the healthiest way for us to eat biologically. And, you are going to be far better off. I mean, yeah, you can starve yourself, lose weight. You can go on a refugee camp diet and just, or a concentration camp diet where you just, starve yourself. That's not actually good for you. You're losing fat, but you're also losing muscle and bone density. So, that's not good for you. That's not healthy. That's not something you want to do. And then when you start eating again, you balloon back up. Why? Because your metabolism is so low and you've been in a famine. And then your body goes, okay, we've got food. We just need to store it or we're going to die. Right. And so, there's that famous study looking at the Biggest Losers show where they lost a bunch of weight, but they just destroyed their metabolism. And they actually checked them 6 years later. Their metabolism was still not recovered at that point. Wow. So, some reasons for that, maybe they just trashed it, or maybe they just kept doing all the stupid habits that they learned during that show to try to keep this weight off. I don't know. But either way, it wasn't good. And so, this is about health. And you can fix your health, come off medications, and fix your hormones. And then eventually, when that all sort of gets down to appropriate levels, then your body, you can ramp up your metabolism and you can lose weight healthily and safely. And so that's the main thing. So setting those goals, focusing on the wrong thing, and the scale is the really wrong thing to focus on. because they
Oh,
say
the
never have
scale
to
is like
move.
the worst thing in the world. It's like,
Yeah.
what is it measuring?
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. So you're looking at a number. And like I said, I lost 23 pounds in 10 days, but then I didn't lose any weight at all. But I was losing a lot of fat and I was putting on muscle and bone. And so I was very happy with that. I thought it was hilarious. I was just like, no, that's crazy. I knew things were changing. Hey, I felt better. I wasn't going to just stop that anyway because I felt amazing. And my workouts were so much better and I felt so much better and my sleep was so much better and I was visibly changing. And so that obviously was having a very positive effect. And then people can, a lot of these long-term Facebook groups for carnivore that are, 10, 15, 20 years old, like zeroing in on health and zero carb health, they, from the beginning, they were like, do not talk about the scale, and like, we're not, that's not what this is about. And so, you have like a non-scale success sort of thing. They have
I need
abbreviations
to
for
make a
that.
t-shirt. So I made these t-shirts. Ditch the
Mhm.
scale. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
To get the message out so people know butter is gold,
Yeah.
eat meat, not wheat, no carb zone, ditch the scale. That's a good one. Thank
Yeah.
you. Ditch the scale.
Yeah. No worries. And so, yeah, so that's the main thing, it's just like, this is about health first and foremost. Very distant second, you could maybe say body composition, you know?
Mhm.
Nowhere on the list is your weight, your overall weight, because that's not what we're talking about. And there are these studies, like with the Biggest Loser and other sorts of things, where yes, you lost fat, but they also lost muscle and bone density. That's not healthy. That's not long-term sustainable. There's no shortcuts. There's no way to just cheat and just manufacture the results you want. You need to do it the right way. And the right way is eating your biologically appropriate diet, which is what a high fat carnivore diet is for humans. And then, putting in the effort and exercising. Those are the only ways. That's the only way that you're going to get reliable, reproducible, and healthy, safe results. And you're going to get the best results. I've never in my life been able to maintain a low body fat percentage without any effort, just with what I'm eating, without working out. I haven't really been to the gym in literally months now, but I'm not out of shape because I cannot get out of shape because of what I eat. I can get in a lot better shape, but I never get out of shape. I'm out of shape for me. But most people think that I'm in the gym every day, twice a day because of how I look, but I'm not, and so that's just from eating meat. I've never ever found it easier to put on muscle than when I'm eating a strictly carnivore diet. So, focus on the right things, just focus on your health and understand that there really isn't any other way that's going to get you better results faster. I have so many people, talk about they're getting all these benefits, getting all these results, and they're losing weight. Like, oh, I lost 20 pounds in a month, but I just have so much more to lose. Oh, I just wish it would go quicker. I'm like, dude, you lost 20 pounds.
That's
Like, you tell
huge. Who loses
another
like
diet that,
yeah,
yeah,
20
yeah,
pounds?
a
Like
lot of
that's
people are saying like
massive.
2 pounds a month or something like that is like, that's a healthy, safe way to go, or whatever the hell it is. It's way less than people are getting, and then a lot of people are getting on a carnivore diet, and they're like, oh, God, but it didn't happen now. And it's just like, dude, it's happening faster than literally anything else you're ever going to do. And it's doing it in a way that's giving you health as opposed to detracting from your health, and it's sustainable and you enjoy it and it's like, this is not something that you're suffering through. I have enjoyed every single steak I've ever eaten in my life, right? I am thrilled every day that I get to eat what I eat, and it provides me the best health and the best outcomes and the best performance and the best results. So I was like, this is a no-brainer for me. And other people, oh, you're so disciplined. I am not really. I am sensible and I am lazy. Like, I want the best results. I want the biggest bang for my buck. And like that is what this is.
Oh, that's hilarious. Well, thank you, Dr. Chaffee. That was amazing. A wealth of information. And I hope that Everyone got value from the 10 mistakes not to do them and how to correctly start the carnivore diet in the right way. I think the number 10 was probably the most important one. Have realistic expectations. But we're going to see you again for the ultimate carnivore diet for men. But again, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
I hope you loved the interview. You might want to watch these videos next.